friends and fellow makers and beginner sewists. Welcome back to the So What podcast, a podcast and a live where I show you and hold your hands through your beginner sewing journey. So today we are actually going to be making cozies, popsicle cozies. These are some of the easiest things to make, and I love these because you can not only make them for yourself, you can make them for loved ones, you can make them for trade shows or for if you go into a county fair and you want to sell something. This is a good one to have, especially as we go into the fall season. If there are things, like when it's still warm out, but not necessarily hot, and you want something to hold your popsicles. Now, for this one, you are going to need two pieces of fabric. Each one measures approximately 5.5 by 7.5. So I have that shown on the screen there. Hopefully you can still see both of them. So I have two pieces here, and this is the cliche version of this because I am actually using a fabric that's a coffee themed fabric, because I love my coffee, but we're making popsicle cozies. So yeah, go figure, right? So each of these pieces is 5.5 by 7.5. So this is long waist 7.5 and 5.5. Actually, I might want to move this so that you can see this without me being scared of dropping something. Okay, so there we go. It gives you a little bit more insight into that. Now, in addition to that, you will need quilt batting. I have this version of quilt batting, and I have not cut this yet, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. In the meantime, if you do have any questions as I go through this, please feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm always happy to answer people's questions. I love getting the questions because it shows me that people are paying attention. So even if you're watching this later on and you have a question that comes up, feel free to say, hey, you explained something. I'm not quite sure I got it. Would you mind sharing that information with me? And to cut this piece of fabric here, because I already have my other pieces, I am just going to use it as the measuring yardstick here to go ahead and cut this. I have some pinking shears that I will go ahead and use for this. I love my scallop pinking shears, so that's what I'm using for this particular one. And because I do not like waste, I try to cut exactly what I need to avoid having pieces all over the place. So I'm going to take that and put it back in the bag. In the meantime, please let me know where you are watching this from. I'd appreciate it. So yeah, for those who are just joining, I had a rather interesting start to this whole thing. I started, and of course, my camera immediately fell down, which is like, whoa, okay, that was a little ominous. But I'm going to go ahead now and iron this through. And I want to make sure it's nice and crisp. So if you want, this is a little ironing board that I created. Excuse me, and I have a video a little further down. So if you're curious about how to do one of these, I will be more than happy to share the video. Just comment, and I will share it in the link below. So we'll get that done. Okay, so now we have that, and we're going to go ahead and let's see. Here, I want to. We'll come back to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this as a live stream. I thought I was live streaming this entire time. I did not realize I wasn't. So let's click on the live stream option here. Oh, it is already. Okay, so clearly. I thought it had lost the connection, so I was a little concerned. But anyway, so we've gone ahead and ironed this now. Should have two cameras on the side. You're seeing exactly what I'm doing. And let's pin that so that you can see both sides. So this is the main camera of what I'm doing. Again, if you're just joining me, you need two pieces of fabric, 5.5 by 7.5. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these two pieces and put them together like so. And I'm going to go ahead and move my iron over. I need, actually, where is that? I had something that I used to move it because I didn't want, oh, you know what? I could just move the entire board. Why am I even trying to do that? I'll move the entire board over to the corner here. And this is what I was looking for right here. And then get this here so that you can clearly see what we're doing here. So we're going to go ahead and take that. And then I have my piece of batting here that I'm going to just put here. Now, the next thing you're going to do is fold this in half. So again, we have a little bit of a sandwich here. So we have the sandwich where right sides are facing each other. Make sure that if you're using directional fabric, you have both sides located at the right, in the right direction. And then I have my batting here. I'm going to take this and just fold it in half. Now, what I'm doing is just finding a marker there, and I'm going to take my marking pen right here. And from that middle place there, I'm going to take this and just mark approximately an inch from the top. Okay, so you see this top here, I'm going to take an inch there, and then I'm going to take it from this corner here and just mark that. Okay, so now you have something that's like a little slant. I'll show you what that looks like. This is what it looks like, just from this corner here to a little slant. Now I'm going to open that back up, like so. And I'm going to cut that slant that I just created, okay? So don't do it on the fold. You're just going to do it like so, and then just cut that out there. You don't need that piece. It actually is just one that you're not going to be able to use later. So it is what it is at this point. Now let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to sew everything around with the fabric facing down. And we're going to leave approximately 1 inch in the corner. Actually, let's do 2 inches. So we'll leave 2 inches in the corner so that we can turn this inside out. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark this. 2 inches there. And just make sure I see it. And I'm going to go ahead and sew this all around and leave this 2 areas open. Now, what I always tell people when I'm sewing is, remember, I am using black thread so that it's more visible on the camera. So if you see me sewing something and you're like, oh, what is she doing? The reason for that is because I want to make sure that everybody can see what I'm doing, okay? So it's not that I don't like matching threads. I do like matching threads. I just want to make sure that people are able to see it. Now, the other thing too is make sure your fabric has not shifted. If you need to use pins to do that, to hold it together, you can do that. So sometimes what I like to do is, as I'm doing the corners, I like to back it up a little bit, because corners do tend to get this, they do tend to come apart a little easier. So I am going to back it up, and then I'm sewing everything together. Oh, I'm almost out of bobbin. So I do have a case of bobbin here. Not a problem. And because I don't have black pre-wand, I'm going to use brown since it kind of matches what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to say that and cut this. It's always the best laid plans. I am the imperfect sewist, so welcome back to that. And now you know why I am the imperfect sewist, because I don't believe in perfection when it comes to sewing. Everybody makes mistakes, and if we didn't all make mistakes, then why would we have seam rippers, right? Like, that's exactly the whole reason why we have seam rippers. It's just for that. So we're going to go ahead and continue sewing. And sew around. Making sure you're catching all 3 layers. So the main fabric, I'm using about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this is a very simple and easy beginner friendly project. So it doesn't take much time at all. I would say at most it probably takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do this. So you really shouldn't be spending a lot of time. If you find that you're spending more time doing this, then you want to take a moment to stop and figure out what's going on, because this is really, really a very beginner friendly project. So I guess I didn't show you my sewing machine is how sewing this, but that's okay. All right, so today, let's see, go back to my pink and shears. These are Guggenheim. And first, I'm going to get rid of the extra threads that I have. So you'll see me doing that. And then we'll go ahead and cut the edges. All right, so I want to get rid of the excess so it doesn't look too bulky. I actually happen to like using pink and shears for the inside of my fabric, and not because or for the inside of my projects. And it's not because anybody's going to see it. Most people are not going to see it. The reason I like it is because it actually serves as a good way to kind of ensure that things don't fray even on the inside. And I feel like over time, everything has a tendency to fray. So this is kind of my way of, in my head anyways, guaranteeing that it's not going to do that. So we're going to cut the edges just so that we are sure that it's not going to be too bulky when we turn it inside out. Now remember the opening, the 2-inch opening we had earlier. Now we're going to use that. Oh, I see a piece of thread here. We're going to use the 2-inch opening that we had earlier and just turn it inside out. So now you have 3 layers. You're going to open it from the middle. That's the sandwich area there where you had both your fabrics facing each other. And the other thing too is if you wanted to really create like a quilt type effect where you have the threads and everything running horizontally or sewn horizontally and or vertically, you have the option to do that as well. Now I'm going to use my bone. I love this pointer thingy. I know some people don't know what it's called or what it is, but I call my pointer thingy. But not just that; it's more for. You see here, it has this for sharper ends, and it has this rounded edge here for taking care of the rounded corners. But because I'm trying to poke this out, so I'm going to use it for my other edges here, and then just work this through. And remember, there was one edge that we had it lower, and that's this edge right here. So the reason I did not immediately turn off my iron when I was sewing is because now I want to make sure this is the opening, and I want to make sure that everything comes and closes properly together. So I'm going to bring that back around, and we're going to sew this. I love the convenience of having this small ironing board. I'm going to be honest, because it just makes life a whole lot easier when you're working with stuff versus trying to open it. So I see an area here that is not fully poked out, and I want it to look crisp. Crisp. If you know me, you know I deeply dislike ironing. My husband, thank God for him, he does the ironing, and I am very grateful for that. So all right, so now we have the edges that are more crisp, and we're going to go ahead and iron this flat. So why do you need a popsicle cozy? You don't have to have one, but it's a nice one to have in the summer. Why? Because your beverage might sweat, and when it does, you probably don't want something wet all over your hands, especially for little ones. They don't necessarily care for wetness and stuff like that. The thing about having the batting is that it actually helps, because when you have the batting, it will hold the temperature a little longer. Now we have this. Okay, so we're going to put the iron aside. We're completely done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and move this fully out of the way now. Safety first. And then we're going to take this now, and the next thing we're going to do is, remember, we have this area that where we have the opening, and also I'm going to fold this. I have the option of either doing it this way or doing it this way. I think I do want to do it this way. Um, let's see. This has a heart with coffee, a cup of coffee. So yeah, I think I want to do that. So I'm going to do it this way so that the heart shows. Anyways, so we're going to take this, and if you have sewing clips, this is a good time to use them. Just make sure you have everything fully. So see here, I just noticed that it's not fully poked out, so I'm going to use my bone again and just go in there and try to help it out a little bit. This is why we cut the edges. If you're not sure why people do that when they're sewing, this is exactly why, because you want to make sure that everything looks well put together. So we're going to put that together, and I have some clips here, so I will use my sewing clips. So these are just plastic clips. I have the smaller ones, but for some reason I can't reach those. So we're going to put that there. Put this here. And put this here. And all we're going to do now is sew the 3 corners. So we're going to sew this down from there, down this way, and down this way. You don't necessarily need to sew this area. I find that it's not necessary, so you don't need to. Again, this is supposed to be beginner friendly, not meant as a way to torture you. Now remember, for this area here, you want to make sure you're catching it, because that is very important for ensuring that you seal it in. So let's go ahead. We'll start with the top layer here, remembering that it's slightly slanted, so this is what it looks like right now. So when you open it, your popsicle is going to be facing you on the side. So we're just going to go ahead and start that. The other option you have also when you're doing this is that you could also fully sew this around, and then if you want, make it completely flat. I find that you don't necessarily need that, but again, it's your choice. This is a beginner friendly project. Making sure you're catching all the edges as you go along. Again, because I want to make sure that this is not going to unravel over time, I'm going to backstitch a couple and then come back. And when I teach beginners, I tell them, don't try to round your fabric or roll your fabric or anything. Just lift the lever and then put it down. So as for the allowance here, it's a little over 1/8 of an inch allowance. Like, I'm just doing a very small seam allowance here just to get everything together. Also, remember, I have my opening here, so I'm watching that very carefully to make sure that it does capture that. So and then when I get to this very end here, I'm going to stop and do a back stitch. The reason for that is because that is actually the full end of the 2 pieces coming together. So, but then I'm not stopping there. I've done my back stitch, and I'm going to continue straight on. And now I'm going to turn this. Again, remember, everything's now done. I'm just going to sew this all the way to the end, and you'll see what that looks like. And believe it or not, this project, even with all the mishaps that we had, is actually done. So if I was doing this, I can do 10 of these in about a half hour to 45 minutes. It doesn't take long. As long as your pieces are already cut, it doesn't really take any time at all to put it together. So now let's go back to the sewing table so I can show you what this looks like, and I can answer any questions that have come up during this week during my different sewing videos. So this is what this looks like. I'm just bringing the video a little closer up. Remember, we have the opening here, and when we were working through that, we made sure that the opening fully closed, and this is now your cozy. it has the open pocket there. You can just put your popsicle in there. If you want it to be able to sit slightly, you have the option of turning it inside out and then just creating a flat edge there. I don't feel that that's necessary. So it's just, it would be more for looks because most popsicle sticks don't have a flat base anyways. But if you decided you wanted to do that, that is an option. That's entirely up to you. Make it what you want. But this is a very fun, beginner friendly project. I must say, I love the way it turned out, and I am looking forward to having lots of popsicles without wet hands this summer. Now, let's go ahead and answer any questions you may have. I'm going to turn this other camera off, and let's see here. I'm going to turn that off so that I can fully participate here. Actually, is there a way to, yes, I can leave this studio and come back here fully. So now tell me what questions you might have. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. In the meantime, I will share with you some of the questions I've received throughout the week. Someone asked me if if you don't have batting, do you have the option to use something else? Now that depends. That was the first one of the questions I received on a different topic, but I thought this would be a good time to share more information about the use of batting. So batting, which I must have tossed somewhere over there, batting is primarily used for the preservation of temperature. So if you have either something hot or something cold and you want to preserve the temperature, you would use batting. It's similar to what people use for blankets and different things like that. And usually you use cotton batting because it's meant to hold onto the temperature to keep things in place. Do you have to use batting? I don't think so. However, I will add this. If you're going to be creating, let's say, like hand mitts and things like that, and you're going to be handling hot things or touching hot surfaces, yes, you absolutely do want to have the right kind of batting. There is a thermal batting that you can use to ensure that it holds the temperature or it doesn't burn your finger and things like that. The one I was using is just a regular cotton batting, and that's primarily what you would use for blankets and things like, like a blanket or a bib or bowl cozy, or and you want to make sure it's 100% cotton. I should have mentioned that. You want to make sure it's 100% cotton because that is important. When you either do something or touch something, you want to make sure that it's 100% and it's not going to melt and mess up your fabric or your projects as you're going along, and you want to make sure it's going to last. So obviously cotton is one that has been proven time and time again to last, so that's why you would want 100% for that. Now so regarding the question, must you use batting or quilts batting or whatever for projects like this? No, you don't absolutely have to. If you have a thicker fabric, let's say you're working with wool or something like that, that could work. But again, you also have to think about the project you're making. So if you're making something that requires you to touch hot temperatures over time and it's not necessarily a sweater or clothing item you're going to wear, you know, you can just improvise if you're using wool and whatever. And especially if it's something that it's not, you don't care about the temperature, you can use multiple layers of the same fabric. That might help give you the structure you might be looking for. You can use fusible fleece. That's also another option that I sometimes use. So again, like I feel like sewing is one of those things where it's important to know the basics. It's important to know and do the things that everybody says to do, but also it gives you room to improvise. You don't have to there's no hard and fast rule that says you must do this or else. Okay. Sewing should be fun. Sewing, like the way I see it, is the art of putting two things together and just making something wonderful out of it. So if you are able to still accomplish what you're trying to accomplish by sewing or by putting two things together, and it works. Nobody's going to judge you. Now, if you're going to sell an item, you want to make sure you're using the right materials because you don't want someone to get hurt in the process of using an item that you made. So always keep that in mind. Another question I had was, is it hard to learn to sew? It depends. Okay, so let me just say that it depends. Is sewing easy for me? Now I will say it is, because obviously I've been sewing for a while and I do have a tendency to pick up art, like crafty things easily. So for me, it's not hard. and I've been sewing or watching my mom or different people sew since I was a kid. So I've been in the middle of it. So for me, it's not that hard now. For other people, if it's something that you've never done before, you've never seen anyone doing it, and you're just picking it up, you might find it a little more of a there might be a little bit more of a learning curve, but is it an insurmountable learning curve? No, I don't think so. I don't think sewing is hard per se. I do think it does require a little bit of imagination and trying to see and picture in your head what your final product should look like. That's always a good way to take to do you to learn to sew. You can start out with, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then end with, okay, it's not what I wanted, but now I know which way not to go. Misty, I have a positivity calendar on my office desk, and last week there was one that says making mistakes is not the end all be all. It's akin to something like that, but it says, when you make mistakes, it's a reminder that there's a different path to achieving success. So don't look at it as in, if you're not getting it right, oh my God, the world has ended. It has not. You'll be fine. So if you make a mistake, that is what the seam ripper is for. I have multiple seam rippers, and I recently decided to invest in one of these, which I absolutely love. It's like this tiny seam ripper. And while it looks like nothing, the reason I love this seam ripper is because it has this outer edge here, which allows you to kind of not erase, but move the thread off the piece more easily. So I invested in this one in addition to other seam rippers. I have multiple seam rippers on my desk, on my sewing table. So don't feel like it's a hard thing and you're not going to be able to pick it up. Seam rippers are a thing, and they're sold everywhere you buy craft supply, and there's a reason why they're so popular and easily accessible, and that's primarily because mistakes happen, and when they happen, you can fix them. Just ripping it off. Anyway, so those were the two questions I received this week, and I wanted to share the responses here with you. If you have any other questions, leave it in the chat, and I hope to see you next week. If there are topics or easy beginner-friendly projects that you would like me to cover here, please feel free to leave that in the comment section as well. I will be more than happy to share with you. Until next time, be sure to click on any other videos. I have a whole playlist of the beginner-friendly projects, so if you're looking to pick something up or you're looking to teach someone how to do something easily, please feel free to share one of their videos. I do appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful week.